Can you hear me, Glory? Okay. I will call this meeting to order, August 14th meeting of the ANWSD School Board. So, first thing is to take a look at the agenda. If someone would like to make a motion to accept the agenda.
Wow, I didn't know we had
So moved.
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome, Sue.
Second.
Second by George. Okay. So, any
Discussion, what is this doing
changes?
on the agenda?
I'm sorry?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Any changes or additions to the agenda from anyone?
So the section about the job description, I would suggest that we talk about it later and remove it from the agenda, today's agenda, because
We'll talk about it at another meeting.
at another meeting. Yes, sorry.
Okay, so we will remove the job description. Anyone have anything else? Okay, I have a couple more from me. We're actually going to, because we have a second meeting scheduled immediately following this to ratify the support staff contract, we are going to remove the executive session from this meeting. So we'll strike that. And I believe, as a result of our time with Nicole, that we're going to need under action items, a motion to create a committee to, what shall we call it, Superintendent Evaluation Committee. So if we can add that action item.
That would be great.
Sorry for the changes. Hope everyone's okay with that.
Go
All
for
right.
it.
Okay. Next up is public comment. Yes?
All in favor?
Any comment?
All
Oh,
in favor? All in favor?
of what?
Motion?
Oh, sorry. The motion to accept the agenda with those changes. Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Glory. Keeping me on track. All right. Next up is public comment. Is there any comment from the public? Hi, Nancy.
Nancy Ambrose, high school math teacher, resident of Jones. Taught right here 37 years. Broken record, again, I'm disappointed we're starting the school year without a contract. So I hope that it speeds along and we are there soon.
Thank you. We hope so too. We do have a mediation scheduled for August 31st. Yes, Rose.
Rose Wenzel, I live in Virgins. I would just like to make a suggestion. I've been coming to these meetings for as long as you've been meeting, for about a year now. If you could have name tags, the ones that go in front of you, because I still don't know all of your names, and as part of the public, it's nice to know which town you're representing and what your name is. It's just a suggestion, and I just feel it would be important for people. Just those paper little fold over, not looking for money or anything. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the public? Okay. So we have Nicole Mace here from the VSBA, and she's going to hopefully get us started on this year's superintendent evaluation process. Thank you.
Okay, if I sit here?
Please. Oh, yeah.
And I brought extra copies of what was in your packet in case you need that. So, those. I'm not sure I have enough of these. I assumed some people would have these, so I didn't want to waste a lot of paper. So,
Except on the Chromebooks, you gotta read it sideways.
Yeah.
You do Control Shift and then the little circle
Yeah?
arrow up on the top, and it'll flip it 90 degrees.
Control Shift?
Where are you looking at it? Are you looking at it as a
Control
PDF?
Shift.
Because I,
Oh,
Or are you
cool.
looking
I
at it in
downloaded it,
Google?
Okay,
You downloaded it as a PDF.
we can add this to our
But
board
it-
training
When
on
it
Google.
says shifts the screen, it doesn't matter what you have. It'll shift the screen 90 degrees.
Okay.
But your arrow keys will be wrong. So if you try and use your mouse, you're going to be...
Okay. Good to know.
Nicole?
Okay, hi everyone. It's great to see you all again. It's been about a year, I think, since I was here, and it's still a warm library. But I've had an opportunity to speak with Sue a little bit and Joanne briefly around sort of what's happened in the past around superintendent evaluation and what we might recommend moving forward. Part of that centers on, well, let me back up. The superintendent evaluation process isn't a moment in time. It is a process whereby the board and the superintendent come together around a common set of goals and expectations that have been clearly articulated by both sides, and that the evaluation itself provides an opportunity for the board on an annual basis to have a check-in with the superintendent around those goals and expectations, updating them. So it's really a foundational activity in terms of the relationship between the board and the superintendent. And the board's role is really to establish clear expectations, because that's the fairest way to evaluate somebody, that you've been really clear about what you expect. So, and the superintendent is accountable for leading the district to achieve those goals and expectations. So at the VSBA, we provide a service to help guide a board through this process. And we've built our approach around a model that was developed in New York that we think makes a lot of sense because it does two things. Number one, it uses a rubric that is aligned with the professional standards for superintendents. So in order for a superintendent to maintain his or her license, they have to demonstrate that they are able to meet professional standards. And so it's important that an evaluation instrument include reference to those professional standards. It also has includes within it goals that are specific to the district that the board and the superintendent arrive at together. When I talked with Sue about what made sense given where you all are as a newly operational district, my recommendation was that the evaluation that gets conducted this fall looks back at the transition year. You all as a board have been working with Joanne as superintendent for 13 months plus. And I was with you all a year ago where you identified a work plan, identified some strategic priorities for the district. May not have been as clear as we might like moving forward, but Joanne had some pretty clear directives in terms of the work that needed to be accomplished this year. And so it seems to me to make sense to use this cycle as an opportunity to talk about how it's gone over the past year, looking at some of what those key deliverables were in order to become operational this past July. And also to really hone in on what are our expectations moving forward. Updating the job description is something I heard from Sue as being a key activity, and again, a place to sort of get folks on the same page about what this job is and what the expectations are of the board for the superintendent. Having the superintendent, Joanne, at the table informing those conversations. So this evaluation process I would see as being overseen by a committee that digs in a little bit further into the rubric that we have adapted, tweaking it to make sure that it sort of makes sense for your district. And the information that the board has available to it around performance indicators, and then conduct the evaluation and have a conversation with the board after that about the results of the evaluation in order to inform the goals for the coming year. The nice thing, we've done superintendent evaluations before as an organization, and we haven't used a rubric. It's been more of a survey question type, rate them on this, a scale of 1 to 5, or, star scale rating. I think that's difficult because everyone may have their own idea of what constitutes a 5-star performance. And so a rubric is really nice because it gives clear examples of what highly performing work looks like versus ineffective work. So whether or not the specific indicators are what's going to work for the committee or the board, that's the work over the next month or so. But I do strongly recommend the use of a rubric rather than a 5, a rating scale, because I think, number one, everyone's clear about what success looks like. And number two, you as a board start to get a little bit clearer about the kinds of things you're going to want to know about throughout the year that would help the superintendent demonstrate to you that she is highly effective in this area. I think a lot of times superintendents do a lot of work that you as a board really don't have information about. This rubric can serve as we really want to start to incorporate into our meeting schedule an update on this, because we really don't feel like we have enough information or know about it. So it really, as I said, it's designed to become a tool for ongoing dialogue between the parties. So, did I give enough background, do you think, for the... That's right.
Maybe we should check.
Anybody have any questions for me about the recommendation? About how you could proceed?
The recommendation being that we use this rubric that you've adopted and adapted?
The recommendation being you form a committee to sit with this rubric and Joanne, tweak it where it makes sense, that you review the goals. So Sue gave me a lot of documents to look at that you all have put together that laid out some goals and work plan for the year, and I used those documents to come up with the 4 goals, which are the last 2 pages. So you'd want to have your committee dig into that a little bit more, make sure that those actually reflect, and with Joanne, yes, that's what we agreed would be accomplished this past year. Because you don't have anything formal in writing, because it's the first time you've done this, this is really about getting clear on paper about what process you're going to use both this year and moving forward.
So the first 6 pages of this document is the rubric that you guys have adapted from New York that is tied to the professional standard system, and then the last 2 pages are what you've put together in relation to what we've got.
Correct.
Assuming that we A, form a committee, and B, go ahead and do what you've suggested. You just said you don't suggest a survey with a 5-point scale, but this rubric, but there's a rating involved in the rubric as well. So are we talking still a 5-point scale within this? Within this, or how does, I'm looking at my boxes going from ineffective to highly effective, for example, on the last 2, and then a rating box. What are we writing in that rating box?
Highly effective, you would write the words.
We'd write the words.
Yes.
Got it.
So
okay.
one of the things that we need to figure out on our end, technologically speaking, is how do we put this into an electronic format that you all can use, and we can collate the results, because that's part of what we do, is administer the tool and then collect the results and
I might
put them in
suggest a scale of 1 to 4.
Yeah, couldn't you collate it a lot easier that way?
You could, and in terms of having ineffective be a 1 and highly effective be a 4, sure.
Yeah.
Yep. if it's important to you that you have an average number to,
Oh, no, I was just trying to make it easier
yeah.
for your computation.
yeah, no, okay. I think it's really what's gonna work best for you all to get the information that you need in order to have a good dialogue about where you've been and where you're going.
So it seems to me that then everything would be weighted equally, and I don't know in the rubric is each one of these things rated equally. That would be the only issue of giving a number, is that there's some things that might be a lot more important than others. And the other comment I wanted to make is, it seems to me that whatever job description there is needs to match what the rubric is. So.
Right, so what I would recommend is that the committee also look at updating the job, so the order of operations is a little, it's not ideal this year because you don't have a job description in place and you're obligated to evaluate the superintendent by March. And the fact of the matter is she's already doing the job. So what's important, I think, is to put the job description on the table and this rubric and make sure that there is alignment. Again, looking forward, this is really an opportunity to establish a baseline for future evaluations that key off of a common set of expectations, job description, et cetera.
George, did you have a comment?
I was just gonna note, I mean, there's the category rating down here at the bottom, and if there were numbers here, it would also make it easier to come up with a numerical
What page are you looking at?
averages.
Right.
Well, all of them at the bottom have a, except for those. The category rating at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
But then we assume that each one is equally important.
Well, that's true.
Which
Diane's
is what
right.
I was just saying, yeah.
And I don't know how you decide that.
So,
That would be tough.
It seems like we aren't just behind the 8 ball. The 8 ball is at the front of the room and we're at the back. We absolutely have to have a current and effective job description right on the front of the table, first off, because we've only got, 6 months before we're right in the middle of the evaluation. Joanne can't possibly be doing what the job description says if we don't have it. So that has to be the first piece that we address and then match the rubric to it, and then we can start working along to see how things are going. Does that make sense?
So just one clarification. We do have a job description on file. It's not that we don't have one, it's just that it needs to be updated.
It's behind times.
Do we currently have a committee that's working on updating the job descriptions?
Well, it came up at the last meeting and there was not a lot of interest, which is why Tom just took it off of the agenda for today.
I see.
So here's what I would suggest. You may not have an up-to-date job description, but you have 13 months of experience working with the superintendent on a pretty long list of goals and outcomes. And that I wouldn't worry about the fact that you don't have the job description before you can evaluate how this past year's gone. I would suggest as a first meeting of the committee, we could bring forward our recommended superintendent job description, which is also aligned with the professional standards. You could look at that, see whether, what's missing, what you like, and have the work on both documents proceed sort of together. But my recommendation is that you are evaluating, using this cycle to look backwards, not put together a job description, put together some goals, and evaluate Joanne against those goals 2 months after you've articulated what they are. You all spent a lot of time last summer setting, identifying what the key things that needed to be accomplished were. And now you're up and running, so it's a good opportunity to look back.
So are you planning on participating in this committee?
Yes, so that's part of the service, is that we would staff the committee.
I guess the only thing that's a little difficult for me, because this is the only board I'm on, and we really were dealing with budget and, what was our other charge? Budget and negotiations were kind of our two charges, so
And
our fingers have not really
And the vision statement.
And the
And the vision
policy.
statement,
And
right.
policy.
And policies.
Which I think are the four. I think
So those are the four
those are
things on there.
basically the four.
So basically, we would just evaluate Joanne on the past year as far as what our charge as a board was as well.
So, yes, that's the goal discussion. I think it's also important, and we could add a category that says, not enough information on the rubric to say, we don't know, because that hasn't been on our radar this year. But now that we believe that this is, and understand that this is an essential component of the superintendent's job, we're going to be asking for evidence of that in other intervals during the year. So I would say using the rubric as an opportunity to focus on what the job of the superintendent is outside of the goals for that specific year. Superintendent has a job to do,
So the other areas are the board and superintendent relationship, the community relations. Each of these pages is a separate area in addition to those goals. Staff relations, business and finance, instructional leadership. And then it goes into the goals that we had developed last year.
I think
Are
maybe.
we the only
Nicole?
ones that will be giving input?
I'm sorry?
Are we the only ones that will be giving input? Because the union board was talking about a 360 and,
that happened, again, because this is the first year you're doing this, I think it's a really important moment for you all to get on the same page, have a job description, get comfort and familiarity with both what the job of the superintendent is and what the goals of the district are. And then next year you can talk about soliciting other sources of input. Because you've basically had numerous school boards operating at once over the last year, and a superintendent that's been responding to districts that have been in existence, putting out a broad 360 evaluation in that context can be, I think, really challenging for people because they're not sure what hat, Joanne had on maybe in the past year, which board she was working for. So I would suggest, because it's a transitional period and you don't have anything in place, that you focus on getting your own house in order with the superintendent, and then in subsequent years talk about processes to get other forms of input.
I think by virtue of the number of questions that we have about this rubric, it does seem like a good idea that we somehow formalize either the whole board or a committee of the board coming to terms with what it means. In other words, I think it's a good idea to form a committee to examine this. I'm looking at the rubric now, and I can see, I think that the highly effective column could be a little more colorful. That's my input. But there's lots of things people have to say, and I think that it would be a good idea for us to go forward with that recommendation, to look into this more specifically and tailor it to our district.
So, Nicole, can I ask a question? In particular on the rubric, under staff relationships,
Yep.
and then the instructional leadership page, do you have any suggestions on how we as a board make determinations in those areas when we're not really as well versed in those areas, I guess, or informed?
Well, I think,
I think those areas are challenging to evaluate.
yeah, and I think it provides an opportunity to have a conversation with the superintendent around how she could demonstrate through evidence what's happening in each of these areas, and to the extent the board would like, a showcase on learning to happen every other board meeting, or some way to, we'd like to get some more, now that we're stopped drinking from the fire hose of trying to get the district up and running, we want to try to get a little bit more information relative to these pieces. What's also missing from here are goals related to student achievement. And that is something that you should include in a future rubric, but we didn't include it here because I don't think that you've had that conversation yet around very clear metrics around student achievement, what are the sources of evidence you're gonna be looking to on that? So that would be, I would see as part of the work looking forward and setting goals for the coming year.
We must have policies on student achievement, though, or not?
Policies on student achievement, we have, well, I don't think we have benchmarks in our policies
Oh,
per
okay.
se, but we have policies around curriculum and, yeah.
But yeah, that all becomes very loaded, right? What we're measuring, how we measure what we're measuring is a really important question, I think, for our governance.
Right, so I think that's why what Nicole's advising is we take this opportunity to make sure that we really know what we're gonna be looking at, how we're gonna be measuring it, what is the evidence, and then do that for the past year, and then next year, we would start where we left off and move forward, and including student achievement, and including perhaps input from other outside, we can have that conversation, whether we want to do a 360 or some input from other sources.
I support that.
Tom?
Can you sketch out a timeline of what this looks like? Assuming we say yes, we form a committee tonight, what
Yeah.
Say timeline?
timeline?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I'm curious
what I
about
wrote too.
what a provisional timeline might look like if we agreed to, if we formed a committee that would then examine this more clearly. Assuming you said March 1st, but did we agree to an April 1st or we said March 1st?
March 1st.
A March 1st deadline.
That's in the contract, so
That's in
you're
the
on the
con-
hook
right,
for that. That's
right,
not me.
right.
It's been signed.
So I would have that as the drop dead deadline, but I would envision the committee would meet. I would hope you could probably crack it out in one meeting in terms of looking at a sample job description, looking at the rubric, and having a discussion about what's in that so that I had enough feedback and input to go back and do a new draft, which would then, we could meet once in September, once in October, be on track to do it in November or December. So I know budget stuff gets crazy. My schedule's a little crazy, but I think we could probably have 2 to 3 committee meetings to conclude get on the same page and actually fill out the rubric. And then the work is really around what are the goals for the coming year. So I see it as less of a build up to the actual evaluation and more of a, now that we have gotten on the same page and we know how we think we're doing on these metrics that we've agreed to, now what are our goals for the coming year? And that would get done before March 1st.
So sorry, what we would give Joanne on February 20.
No, the written
8th.
report isn't due till March 15th.
Okay. What we would be for our work with her in FY17 only, or FY17 and also FY.
So it would be a
I'm just-
summative document, so
Yeah.
summarizing the results of the evaluation and specifically agreed upon priorities for
Yeah.
the coming year. It's a here's how we've done and here's where we're headed.
And the coming
Document.
year would be what?
Well, it would be,
That's my.
Are
that
we
was-
always
that's what I was-
evaluating a year prior?
The goals would be for
No,
the
we shouldn't.
coming.
the goals are for the coming year, and then I would imagine that you do the evaluation every, late summer, fall, so that you're looking back at how the school year went.
So we're looking at
And
16,
your
17.
contracts run July 1 to June 30th, and you have notice requirements in April or March. So you're always going to be looking back at the school year that has just concluded.
So what we deliver on March 15th of 2018 is the 16-17 is the evaluation of the 16-17 school year.
Which has already been done.
And goals for the current school year. So this is why I'm suggesting you get it done soon, by November. Preferably, you have the conversation, you come to an agreement on the goals so that you're not waiting until March to talk about what the priorities are for this current school year.
Sorry, I'm just, so that 16, so in March 15th, we're giving an evaluation of the 16-17 school year, and then
And
it's,
goals.
and goals for the year that is 3/4 of the way done, with the assumption that in the coming year, we could deliver the goals for 18-19 earlier.
So typically what happens with the contractual language is basically, you can't non-renew my contract without having given me a performance evaluation.
Right.
That doesn't mean you should be doing the performance evaluation in the middle of the school year. So I think that's a
March is the deadline,
that
but
doesn't
we
mean
could be
that's
doing
when
it
you
now.
do it.
So you're suggesting doing it in the fall,
I'm suggesting
Every
doing it
year.
in the fall.
right?
And always based on the previous year. So this year we'll do
Yeah.
16, 17 in the fall. Next
Or-
year we'll do 17, 18 in the fall.
Right.
Following year we'll do 18.
But our
Right, does that-
goals, the goals we establish with Joanne will be for 17,
This
18.
current year.
Where we will evaluate her next fall.
Aside from
Although-
this year's, which is gonna be weird, I think ideally the reporter's gonna say, this is how you did based on the goals we set from the last evaluation. This is how you're doing overall, and these are the new goals we have for the coming school year. And then the next year would be looking back at those goals we just set. How did you do? How are you doing in general as a superintendent? And here are our new goals for 1920, 2021.
So the contractual deadline is March, but really, it would be most effective if we could deliver it before the end of August.
So when March rolls around, we take that evaluation that's been completed and use that to decide on the contract? Is that how it works?
So wouldn't it be good if we had an ongoing evaluation instead of just once a year? Like there could be a report once a year, but then we could still check in January
Yeah.
and March.
Like I said, this is not the only time to have this conversation or check in on goals. You have certain contractual obligations that you have to meet. You know, if a contract isn't going to be renewed, hopefully that's a result of really clear conversations centered around clear expectations. So I think the March deadline is less important than what makes sense from a goal setting and prioritization in terms of timeline.
So maybe really making sure this timeline is firm and maybe having a system in place for at least quarterly check-ins could be something that the committee could outline as well and bring back to the board for review.
Yep. And I think, you know, it's really great that you're paying attention to this and you're putting in place the process in order to do it moving forward. You know, not every system evaluates their superintendent on an annual basis. So I wouldn't get worried about, geez, we're not quite where we want to be on the timeline. You're doing really important work. We'll work with you to make sure it happens in a timely manner so that you've got yourselves set up for an easier process
Right.
moving forward.
That's what we're looking for. Thank you.
In my mind, the main question is whether or not we want to form a committee to do this or take the responsibility as the entire board to do it. It doesn't seem to be a question of whether or not we should look more carefully into evaluation standards, but just how. Are there any strong feelings about that either way?
I think we need a committee.
Committee will work
I think we need a
faster
committee.
and can bring options rather than having everybody kind of similar to what the finance committee is doing, where they're not going to be the ones setting the budget, but they're going to say, here are 3 possibilities as opposed to here are 150 possibilities, and
Right.
we'll be here for days.
Yeah, the
lot easier.
committee wouldn't be finalizing anything. They would just be bringing recommendations back to the full board if that was how we decided to go. Sorry, Larry.
Oh, no. find it's just easier to get, I was just gonna say, it's easier to get 5 people to a meeting
Right.
than it is to get 12 people to a meeting.
Okay.
And anybody can show up. Once the committee is set up, you can show up. If you're not on the committee, anybody can show up,
Right.
because it'll be open meetings. Show up.
So, did you have more for us right now, Nicole?
I don't have any more. I mean, what would be really good for me is if you just decide to form a committee tonight, that I connect with you around some dates, because my September schedule is a little bit nuts.
Yep.
But I'm ready to get going as soon as you are.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any more questions for Nicole at this point?
Not on this subject.
Okay, great.
All right, let's
Thank
go.
you
What
very
we got?
much for
Sure
coming.
thing.
Thank you.
So I will be in touch. Okay, where are we here? So, that brings us to board and committee reports. So the superintendent report.
Sure. I have a couple of additions to the superintendent report. Wanted to mention that I noticed that not everyone is using a Chromebook tonight, and that we have a couple that have not been picked up at the office. So if you've not done that, just let me know if you do not plan to use our Chromebook, and we will deploy that Chromebook to another location. In fact, Gloria and I were thinking that if there was an extra one, that I would give it to her to see how that works, to support her work that she does with the board. So you could need an answer tonight. I just wanted to put that out there. At some point, maybe we could spend some time talking about board education related to the Chromebook, and I could set that up with Bob Owens. And lastly, Sue, I'm going to need a quorum of the board to hear a personnel matter. I need to work with that group to set some dates so that we can go forward with that.
Okay, so what's the process for establishing that?
You could do it under action items, or you could ask for volunteers now. You don't really need, it's not an action item, but you can ask for volunteers now.
It's really just establishing a meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a quorum to hear a personnel matter?
To hear a personnel matter, and then I would communicate to the quorum to establish the dates and times.
Okay.
So you need 7
Do
people?
we have an interested 7 people who would like to be hearing a personnel matter?
Finn,
Diana? Finn,
Mark,
George, and I'll do it, that makes 7.
And
Sue.
George is there.
Chris,
Right, 2, 3,
And George.
4, 5, 6.
and George Lawrence, or George Gardner.
Wait, Christina,
2,
Chris.
3, 4,
Mark.
5, 6, and Christina?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
There's your 7.
Thank you. I'll be in touch to establish some dates and times.
Glad you grabbed them before we could for the committee that we're going to establish here.
The other thing I wanted to follow up on is that we believe we're fully staffed with the exception of 2 positions at Ferrisburg. I did verbally offer a position to a 6th grade teaching candidate. I am not bringing her name forward to you until she signs a contract. We've gotten some initial positive acceptance from her, but until she signs a contract, I don't feel we can make that public. So the 2 names that you have in my incidental report, you'll be acting on under action items. And other than that, I'm hoping that you all read the report, because I'm looking for some volunteers at convocation. And if you need more details, I'm happy to offer those.
Yeah, could you give us a little,
Sure.
maybe an outline of the day as
Sure.
well?
We're really excited about the day. The theme is really staff wellness and health fair. After convocation, we'll be running several morning sessions that include activities, information sessions such as the healthcare plans. Delta Dental will be here, the 125 Flex plan. But we'll also have activities like team building on the climbing wall. We'll have yoga. We'll have some mindfulness. And then we are actually serving lunch to the staff at lunchtime. In the afternoon, we will run concurrent sessions again, and people will be able to self-select. When they go to their sessions, they will be given a raffle ticket kind of as an exit ticket. And at the end of the day, around 2 o'clock, this is where the board fits in. We're going to be serving mocktails to the teachers, and one of our drinks is called the Commodore Cooler. And they'll be entering into the auditorium where we will be using those raffle tickets to select prizes. We have a vast number of prizes that have been donated by local businesses, as well as businesses in and around the state, including Basin Harbor and some golf, Hotel Vermont, a night stay in Burlington. We have a leaf blower, we have gift baskets, we have a variety of things that the staff can win on that day. So we're really excited about it. We think it's going to be fun-filled. It's going to be focusing on health and wellness of our staff, and I think it'll be a great welcome back.
So in addition to the volunteers, are there other times throughout the day that it would make
And I
sense
invite
for
all
board
of you to
members
attend the convocation, beginning at 8 o'clock in the morning, where coffee will be served at 7:30. I will kick it off with a welcome back, short, brief words. I'm not going to say speech.
On what day is this convocation?
I'm sorry?
Thursday. Next Thursday.
It'll be the 24th of August.
Okay.
We have teacher recognition. We have selected 2 Teachers of the Year, and that will be announced at that time. We recognize years of service. We'll be introducing our new staff. And what else, Corey? I think that's it.
That's all
Can
part
I,
of the 8?
can I make a suggestion? I read your letter, your welcome back letter, and you referred to vision, and I know we've been talking about staff rollout, and I had a brainstorm in the middle of the night. What if we had one of our students from the Community Engagement Committee announce what the new vision is? Because that would tie in with your letter. I just thought that might be really powerful to have a student do it instead of one of the committee members or you.
We tried to get students to from the jazz band play during that session, but we just couldn't make. That couldn't happen. So if you could get a student to come,
Well,
that would be
I've
great.
been in touch with Megan Tart. I did not tell her. I asked her if she was available that day. She said she's already volunteering.
She probably is, because we do have some student volunteers setting up the prizes and the details of the day. So we do have students working.
Okay. So should I have her get in touch with you?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'd be
I think
happy to
that
do
would be just, I would
Yeah.
really love to have it to start off the year with
That would be nice.
that.
Yeah.
And then it feels like the other parts of your letter was more about how to achieve that vision. So,
That'd be great.
cool, okay.
Cool.
So just let me know if you're going to make convocation, because I would like to recognize you in the audience. Just have you
I'll
stand,
come.
Diana. And if you don't know now, but you can let me know later, just let me know before that morning, but not the morning of.
I'll be there.
Sue and Diana, anyone else think they might, Finn?
I can be there for the first
For the first part?
hour or so.
Tom?
I'm gonna check my schedule, but.
Lori, maybe?
Yeah.
And are the same volunteers going to be there for the afternoon session? Yes? No? Tom, no? Finn, yes?
I'll be here for the, I'll come.
Diana?
I have to check.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm taking my son back to college.
That's okay. It sounds like we have a critical mass.
And we can check in with John, too. He's not here tonight.
Yes.
So,
Do you want me to do that, Sue, or do you want to do that?
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you for offering.
Sure.
Voluntold.
I went last year, it was fun.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I went last year.
I was going to say, I also went last year, and it's great. And I also think, being the board, we're awfully removed from the teachers. And I think it's great that they see we care. So I'm really glad you guys are going to show up. It's awesome.
Well, thank you.
I, by the way, am going to be in Tennessee after the solar eclipse.
Ah,
Oh, that is the day of the, or no, the
The
21st.
solar eclipse is actually on Monday, but, yeah.
Don't look at the sun.
No, sir, we sure won't. Except through glasses.
Be careful of the glasses. I understand there's some fakes out there.
That's, jeez,
It's true.
so health and wellness. Take care of your eyes.
Yes, sir, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So that's all from the?
That's all, but
in
I
addition?
I
Any
am
other-
remiss in not introducing you to a very important person sitting next to me. I'd like you all to meet Elizabeth Atkins. She's our new business manager. We're really excited about her joining our team. She has definitely hit the ground running. She gave you a little bit of insight as to what she's been working on in her incidental report. She has a very brief expenditure report for you that I'll have her distribute in just a minute, not for discussion, but to just for your absorption. We are going to be working with the Finance Committee to design what grain size of information you'll be getting in terms of the monthly reports, but we thought it might be interesting for you to have something in your hands as we're thinking about tonight. But I was going to have them introduce themselves, but now they have name cards, Elizabeth.
They have name cards. How nice.
So welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I've probably maybe only met about half of the people in the room, so.
You've been working too hard to meet the rest of us.
I know, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions for Joanne about anything on her report? Then we will move right over
wanna
to you.
hand
Can I
Lisa.
ask
Yes.
one? I'm sorry. Can we expect that the principals will be at every meeting?
I have told the principals that if there's something personal on their calendar, such as an anniversary or a child's birthday, that they can take a bye. But yes, they will be expected to be at the other meetings. Tonight, this is still summer vacation.
no, that's
And I have two principals who had previous plans, and I told them that was fine. They've also been asked to be thinking about a brief presentation, either from a student group or a teacher group, about what's going on in their schools as you rotate. Next month, we will be in Addison, so I know that Travis will be thinking about that. And our student representatives will also be joining us next month. George?
I had a question with respect to the software consolidation. Is that something that the unification grant could help with, or is being planned, or-
Yes, can help with, and as Elizabeth and I are preparing a report next month to talk to the board about our needs related to that and business office functions. Yes.
So Elizabeth, did you want to say anything about this?
Yes, so what I did is I actually ran a report. This comes directly out of the current software that you have. It's summarized pretty briefly just by function code, which is basically your department code. It's giving the adopted budget any adjustments that have been made internally, and then that revised number, what your actual expenses are year to date as of. Now, the important part is it's as of the date that is at the bottom of the report. It's live, real-time, today, ran, even though some of the columns will say through 8/31. Obviously, it's not projecting an 8/31 actual. The encumbrances that have been encumbered thus far, and then whatever amount is remaining in that overall budget category. There are still some adjustments happening to just kind of make sure everything's being coded in the proper place and where the budget numbers are. Another interesting note is you'll see there's still a sizable amount remaining overall, and that's because there are things like workers' comp insurance, liability insurance, utilities out in your schools that haven't been fully encumbered yet. So we're still working on that and trying to get everything that we know for sure is going to happen throughout the year encumbered, so that you'll have a better picture of where we might end the year earlier in your year. But right now, this is kind of preliminary. August is a pretty early month to be reporting that. But you do have salaries encumbered into these. Benefits are encumbered. They're using a purchase order to encumber them at the moment. We have a plan to fix that.
So does that mean, I'm just looking at the first line, does that mean we have almost $55.7 million in benefits? And only,
No. So the first line
yeah,
actually is your direct instruction, regular education. That's the whole, see the 1100 at the very beginning?
Yeah.
It's a department code. It's not salaries versus benefits. That would be an object code, which is like an actual expense. So this is more of a department. It's all direct instruction. So it's basically, you know, the teachers, the students, those costs that are directly related to those students, and it's got salaries and benefits and everything, supplies and everything all buckled into that one number.
yes. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear with my question. You said you haven't encumbered the benefits, is what I heard
We
you say.
have encumbered benefits, but we've done them with a purchase order. So basically, we've taken the grand total of everyone's benefits and encumbered them by a manual purchase order to put in how much we are going to spend by the end of the year, because otherwise it wouldn't look like there was a lot, it wouldn't look like there was enough encumbered.
Okay.
So
And
those are
is-
included in these numbers?
They are, yes.
Even though they haven't actually been paid out?
Right. There is a better way to encumber them than purchase ordering, but we would have to build it into your software, and that's not been done as far as I can see ever in this district,
So are those types of changes something that you would do now or wait until we get the new software?
Well, that's
for
the
it?
question. That is definitely a topic of discussion, because it's,
Right.
it's a sizable endeavor to make it happen, and you have to determine whether it's worth putting that effort into a software that you're not necessarily going to keep. So
Right, right,
it's
okay.
definitely a discussion item.
Okay, great.
I didn't actually get my question answered, so
Okay,
if you
sorry.
don't mind, I'll just do one more try.
Okay.
So, in the encumbrances, on the first line, we have 5.7 million that is unencumbered.
No, that
Oh, no,
is-
that's the
that's
encumbrance.
encumbered. That's the encumbered.
And that's probably why you
Your
don't know what the
remaining
heck I'm
balance is
talking
what's
about.
left after.
Forgive me, Elizabeth,
Sorry.
thank you. You can move on now,
That's
thank you.
okay.
So if I may, you've encumbered 2/3 of the annual budget.
Mm-hmm.
What is that other third? I mean, we know salaries, we know fuel expense, we know
Yeah, but she said
electricity.
they're not all encumbered yet.
Right, some of it's most of what is not encumbered in that 7 million that it shows remaining. There are things like utilities, what I would call discretionary expenses, those things like supplies, equipment, things that you don't know for sure how much or when you're going to spend them. There's also a sizable amount of professional contracted services you guys traditionally have in your schools. Those things haven't been encumbered, and I think part of that is that over the summer, you don't have your secretarial staff all
Right,
fully manned in the schools and doing those purchase orders. So it's just that those contracts and things haven't been encumbered yet. So we're gonna try to keep working towards that so that we can get as much of that discretionary money allocated to where we know what is actually planned to be spent.
Okay, thank you.
So our reports from here on out may or may not look like this. The
Right.
Finance Committee's gonna discuss and
Right,
decide.
and there's such a variety of different
Right.
ways that I can show them reports. So I'm gonna have some examples for them in our finance committee meeting.
You
so
make
they
the
can
Finance
take a look.
Committee happy, I think we'll all be happy. So,
That is the plan.
It's the plan.
thank you. Any other questions at this point? Tom?
Go ahead, Laura.
Last page, there's a negative number on 2150, the speech pathology. I suspect that
Fine.
means,
I know what the
you
answer
knew
is.
I was gonna say that, I knew you knew I
yeah.
was gonna say that.
I know what the answer is.
So I'm expecting,
So that's
maybe
one
this
of,
is the finance committee, but I'm
Yep.
expecting that will be a revision eventually, or in the amendments column,
yep,
and a positive in this one and a negative on another one. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
That's all. That's
Absolutely.
really great news.
yes, and actually that's
that
in,
nice to
just,
hear?
I actually have the full answer on that one. That one is a situation where, if you notice, that's in the special ed section. It's under 050 for the 2150. And the reason is that there is also, some positions weren't necessarily put in the right place, and so therefore they're encumbering under special ed. In that particular case, it's a preschool program person that is an SLP that needs to be moved
Got it.
into the other category.
Okay.
So there are some of those that's what I was talking about when I was talking about adjustments that need to be made.
I love adjustments.
Awesome.
I also like things that tie. So you start at the beginning,
Oh,
and you
right.
get adjustments, and then you get the
I do
ending
too.
balance.
We also like numbers that,
I agree.
that stay the same.
If it stayed the same, it's good.
Right, thank
So-
you. Tom?
That, and this isn't really for Elizabeth, it's for somebody over there. I see in the report about buildings and grounds that Ferrisburg apparently has a $48,000 capital investment fund.
Yes.
So we've gotten a lot of different information over the last 6 months about capital investment funds at various schools. And I'm just gonna make a request that at some point we have in the nearish future, that we have a very clear amount about who has what, so that the facilities committee can be working with
So
Ken
noted.
to, so, that's all.
Great. Well, thank you, Elizabeth.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, board chair report. Yes, so I just wanted to answer a couple questions that came up at our retreat. So hopefully those made sense to people, as well as give a little brief update on negotiations, which I would like to read. Negotiations with the Addison Northwest Teachers Association have been underway since June 2016. Our first joint meeting was September 19th, 2016. This year presented several challenges to negotiations, including a newly formed school district and board, changes in teachers' health insurance plans, and uncertainty around state legislation and school funding. The mediation session held on June 21st was less productive than anticipated due to Vermont legislative debate around education funding and health insurance occurring that same day. Therefore, it was agreed by ANTA representatives and our board committee to pursue a second mediation date, which is scheduled for August 31st. We're hopeful that a settlement will be reached at that time so that our teachers and board can move forward into a positive and productive school year. The second paragraph, or the third paragraph here, I can actually change. We had negotiations with the support staff. We're underway. When I wrote this, we actually have come to a tentative agreement, which we'll be discussing following this meeting. And the support staff will be talking about with their full membership, I believe, on the 24th. So, does anyone have any questions about any of the other things that I put on here? Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Oh. Sure, yeah.
Say that I would really support quarterly retreats.
Okay. We are going to talk about that down.
What
It's
did you
an
say?
action item.
What'd you say, Diana?
I would report, at the end of Sue's report, she talked about quarterly retreats that came, or she talked about more board retreats instead of just once a year. And I would support it quarterly. That was one of her suggestions.
We do have that as an action item later, so we can,
Oh, okay.
we can talk about that then in more detail.
Can
Uh-huh. Yes, Larry?
Yeah, sorry. So, what you wrote about what Emily said is, in at least my interpretation, slightly incongruous with the actual statute. And
What are you
this is
talking about?
routine hiring in Vermont is under a superintendent's
here.
purview, and the board, I'm sorry, do you want me to?
Nope.
And the board approval is mostly a formality. But the statute actually says the superintendent will nominate a candidate for employment if the position requires a license. And it also goes on to say if the board declines to hire, the superintendent shall nominate a new one.
That's true.
So that doesn't sound like, I mean, it doesn't sound like it sounds like we're required. So I guess I'm a little confused. It sounds like we're required to licensed people, okay.
We
So
are
just
required
want-
to okay licensed people. And if Joanne were to bring someone
That we didn't
that
like,
we
we could vote
denied,
them down.
then she would go back, or she may already have a secondary candidate ready to nominate, or she would go back and find someone else to
Thank you.
bring to the board.
Thank you.
So how does that apply to hiring of administrators, now that we are a single board and hiring principals in schools?
Right. Yeah, I believe that by statute, they fall under the same category, because they're a licensed employee.
Well, that's concerning to me.
In what sense?
Say that.
In what sense does it concern you?
Because now that we no longer have school boards, in the past, the school boards have been very involved in hiring the principals at all the individual schools, and we're giving that up as a district board. And it just feels to me like it removes us.
It's still our responsibility to approve, I believe. Is that what-
Well, I think what Laura just said is if the person's licensed, we just have to let the superintendent do it.
No.
No,
Opposite.
It's within,
sorry.
it's our responsibility to approve or to deny.
Any licensed
Any licensed hires. So there could be,
I would just like to put out there, and I think that maybe we can't do it at this meeting, that I would like the board to be involved with interviewing principal candidates for our schools.
right, so board representation on hiring committees is a separate issue from this in particular. It's something that we don't currently have a policy about, but, I see Tom typing over there, so
You will.
he may take that back to the policy
It's happening.
committee.
He's making mistakes. He's flustered.
Thanks, Dave. Just love his support.
I think the tricky part is if we can turn down a candidate, like, on what terms would we do that? Like, what criteria
Oh,
would
we
we?
need policies for that. We need lots of policies.
Well, that's at the
Ream
board's
policies.
determination. I mean, the statute doesn't give criteria other than that they need to be licensed. Our policies say they need to be licensed and not have a criminal background check. We're asking Joanne to tell us what qualities they have that pertain to their position.
If they've already been offered a contract and they've already signed it, then isn't that kind of binding?
Well,
I didn't hear what Chris said, but also as part of the process that I've used and that I've always used is that this is a very transparent process. Board members and community members get an opportunity to weigh in on the candidates through public sessions. In those cases, I believe we have had board representation on the on the screening committee. Now, I reserve the right to make the final decision and to decide which candidate I'm going to bring forward to the board, but there's multiple opportunities for input along the way.
Are you talking about teachers or principals?
I'm talking about principals.
That's what I thought, okay.
I guess it's just unclear to me, Joanne, as a new board, how that works.
You all also have to be thinking, if the superintendent is your only employee and the principals are my employees, how important it is for me to be held responsible for the performance of the district. I need to be responsible to be working to supervise, evaluate, and recruit highly qualified people. The board gets the final say in the hiring process, but the rest is incumbent upon me because it falls under what you expect of my accountability.
I guess that's where I'm confused. Are principals and teachers employees of you or employees of the board?
They're employees of her, but we still have to say okay before she can hire them.
And our evaluation of Joanne is going to hold her responsible for student performance and, effectiveness of the district, which a lot of that work is going to be carried out by teachers and principals.
the board only has one
all of
employee,
it.
and that's Joanne, and everybody else works for her.
I guess it's just confusing since we have to make those approvals.
But it may be that at some point in the future, and we haven't had to deal with this yet, but at some point in the future, we may need to have a more specific conversation with Joanne about what kind of information we feel we need in order to make the decision up or down.
Yeah.
In my understanding, it's a bit like the executive relationship with the legislative, right? Where Joanna's the legislative and we're the executive. She does the work to bring the candidates forward. We have to sign it into being or
Right,
not.
but we don't want to sign it just because she says sign it.
Right.
We have the right and the responsibility to say, okay, we'll sign. We need these 5 things in order, and some of that is listed out here.
More policies.
But
yeah.
no, not more policies.
It's a procedure.
It's a procedure. We're not.
But it was helpful that you listed this, what you did in your report for these new hires. That was like, you could see something besides a name, which.
I will, in future reports, I'll be adding 2 more things. One is the exact license that's held by the candidate
That's
and
great.
the salary.
Yeah, I appreciated that too.
George?
I just wanted to point out that, there is a track record of Joanne involving board members and even committee members or community members on some of the hiring committees for principals and,
Ferrisburg School is a very good and recent example. We were all invited. My wife went.
Are there still committees being put together hiring teachers as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, all the hiring is by committee. It's
All the
not-
hiring is by
It's
committee.
not someone doesn't just come in and interview with Joanne.
Right, and there are 2 final candidates that I see for most positions, unless we're like in August.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's fair for the board to ask for a hiring report. And if you need to understand the process, and in fact, I think I have tried to do that for principals. I've not asked the principals to give me that in writing before we hire teaching staff, but there is an understanding between me and them around the process that they will use in order to come to a final selection, including a demonstration lesson. And so I'd be happy to roll that out
Yeah, that'd be
at a future
great.
board meeting.
If we understand what the process is and who's involved, that helps too, I think.
Good.
Great.
To answer Chris's earlier question,
Yeah.
it's a tentative agreement. Part of the process is there has to be board approval, and that's part of what they've signed. Just that agreement may be null and void if the board says no.
Got it.
So a teacher could sign a contract, we could reject them, and there would
not a
be
breach of
no,
contract.
no legal issues with doing
Right,
that.
no
Do you
recourse.
understand?
Signing
Okay.
with the understanding that the board still has to give
Has to,
approval.
okay. That's somehow communicated in the contract, must be. Okay.
I would assume so. I hope so.
Is that a true
It's actually not in the written contract. It's not on what they're signing in terms of the dotted line. They understand that the final contracts get final approval, but that's a verbal interaction between me and them.
Is that a problem, or potentially, or is that all copacetic?
It hasn't caused a problem. You know, it hasn't so far.
What if anybody
You haven't
can-
rejected any of my candidates.
Right.
The board
I
goes
see.
rogue.
But there is a statute.
We
But
need
there is
that
a
sixth grade
statute that
person,
says
right,
the board
Rose?
needs to approve them, so I think we have legal
They're
standing
at
there,
least backed
right?
up by a statute.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. That reduces the legal risk.
Isn't that
Right.
It's in the statute.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on there? Or on anything on this? Yes.
I was wondering if, Joanne, if we could have another report from the building and grounds person?
I'm sorry, Lori, I didn't hear that.
When we meet monthly, I was wondering if we could also have a building and grounds report?
I'm going to put that back to the chair. That's a full board request.
Yes, that is,
I mean, I don't know how other people feel about it, but it'd be kind of
Right.
nice to, I mean.
it would be good to know the status of the buildings and grounds. Do you think that that's something that we might get from the facilities committee, or that Joanne might be able to put on her superintendent's report? I'm just trying to be cautious about additional requirements on people who have a lot of work
Right.
that they're managing, but
That particular individual is drowning.
You mean the new manager?
May I? I wouldn't say drowning. Laurie, if it's the request of the board, I would say yes, and that report would come from me and not him. I work very closely with him. I know what's going on. It might not be a two-page report.
No,
but
no,
I
no,
certainly
no.
can give you some highlights and updates.
I just think it'd be, I mean, I know there's just this little piece about, the Ferrisburg School
Yep.
parking lot, but I guess I think it just would be good to have other information if it's
You'll be
there.
getting it from the
So, yeah,
facilities
how-
committee
Yeah,
how
in the
often will the facilities committee be meeting with
once a
the
month.
director?
Once a month.
So, do you guys feel that there would be additional topics that would need to be addressed in Joanne's report, or are you gonna present
Well,
things?
I mean, we don't have a lot of information to report.
No, not today, but I mean moving
I-
forward.
I guess what I would say is, I think it would be helpful, I'd say two things. One is, I think it would be helpful if we met Ken, if we met him as the full board at some point in the next.
Right, and
in the
that's
next
what
month or
I was
two.
gonna add too, that it would be great if he came to a meeting, so just,
Both Kathy Alexander and Ken will be coming to a future board meeting under Board Education. Again, this is our first meeting of the year, and we're trying to map out when some of these pieces can happen, but that certainly is my intent.
I've met Ken. I could tell you about him.
But the other thing I would say is, I think that
He's a good guy.
we should start with the information coming either through incidental reports from Joanne or the facilities committee, and if we need more information, then we can get then we can move from there. But
Right.
but at this point, start with, because I don't think anybody wants to hide anything.
No.
But start with that and then move on if we need more information.
Does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay. George?
So we have a facilities meeting on Friday,
We do.
which is not ideal in terms of reporting back to the board. But, so
Well, we'll
in
be
the
back
future
in-
months, well, how's the timing work out?
Future months would probably work better because the facilities committee meetings are on the first Friday of the month. So it'll be fresh in our brains.
Perfect. Because we're the second Monday, so,
Because we're the second Monday. So
okay.
You wouldn't have time to
Yeah,
forget.
we're not meeting the first, like we normally would. We're meeting the second.
Okay.
nor are we, yes, and that's also the case in September. But normally it's the first.
Good. Okay. Okay. All right. Anything else? Board committees. Community Engagement Committee. Do you have a report?
Well, we have not met except for a little confab at the retreat. We're meeting on Thursday, and we're hope to be talking about rolling out the vision statement at open houses, and Finn is going to be making an infographic, right? And that's really all I have to say about that right now, unless you want me to talk about the councils.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not, because you haven't
Okay.
really discussed
That's
it.
fine,
in
because I
committee.
don't really, other than what you've told me, I have nothing to say.
Cool. Good, good, good. Policy, John's not here. Does any other policy committee member have anything? I don't think they've been
In the first week of September.
excellent.
No,
Good.
Aren't we meeting? I put down we're meeting Wednesday night. This Wednesday.
This Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday, September 6th. I hope it's Wednesday. I hope it's
Oh, no,
not
you're
this
right.
Wednesday.
You're right.
So negotiations.
Give you really a hard
Give him a
time,
heart
Tom.
attack, Larry. Jeez.
Okay. Facilities Committee.
We don't really have a lot to report right now. We're meeting with Ken. We met in mid-July just to kind of introduce ourselves and to establish a provisional charge that you all should have read. It's very long. And to establish a timeline. We'll meet again on Friday of this week when we will hear a little bit more about the performance contract, because there was a meeting of the performance contract the day after we met. We'll try to talk to Ken a little bit more about the kind of systems that he might be developing. And I think that's more or less what we're doing on Friday. But Joanne and I will talk tomorrow about our agenda. So
Perfect.
I can say vis-a-vis the facilities, even though I'm not on the committee, that I have met Ken. He's working really hard, as George has alluded, and that I helped him and Jerry locate the building drainage for Ferrisburg Central School, and it's not being infiltrated by the sumac, so we don't currently have to worry about something happening like it did at the high school. And we're working on putting in the pollinator meadow over there as well, and I've been working with Ken. There's been some confusion about the exact location, but I think it's all going to come out well in the end.
Nice. Finance Committee.
So we met Elizabeth, and she filled us in with what her first 2 weeks was like, much of which she summarized here.
First 2 weeks.
Was that?
It was a little like Ken's first 2 weeks. Floods.
Locusts. I know.
It's not that bad.
And we have another meeting. We have another meeting on Thursday where it sounds like we're going to be talking about reports. We are going to be meeting this. I think it's whatever this Thursday is. It'll be is this the second Thursday? This is the second Thursday.
Yes.
So it'll be the second Thursday every month.
Okay.
That's where we're at.
At 4.
At 4.
Excellent. Cool. Any other board reports?
I attended the Hannaford Career
good.
Center board meeting on July 12th and met the new interim superintendent, Dana Peterson. And it was interesting observing a whole nother board and how they work. And they're about as big as our board. There's a retreat scheduled on August 23rd from 8 to noon, which I will be attending. Lucky me.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, and that's real. They didn't really have any big super agendas. It was Dana, the superintendent's first meeting as well. So he was kind of getting up to speed, and
Cool.
that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you very much
You bet.
for doing
Yeah,
that.
thanks for
It's
representing
another
us.
time commitment, yeah,
Makes me feel good that we've got somebody showing up.
absolutely.
Really makes me feel good.
Cool. Okay,
So we'll have that on, as one of the 5, 6 Hannaford Career Center, or
I don't
is
know
it
if you want to
gonna
make it
just come under the
separate, or
public?
I could just do it under.
yeah,
board reports.
either way, I mean,
Okay.
okay, so we'll move on to action items. And I will accept the motion for the,
I move that we approve the minutes of July 28th and July 19th.
Second.
okay. Any comments or edits? I do have one from July 19th. I actually did not make the motion to approve the signing of the memorandum of understanding. I'm not sure who made the motion. I called for the motion. Somebody else made it. Anyone remember who?
I wasn't there.
Come on, who made the motion?
No, he seconded.
No, John seconded, so it could not have been him.
Well, then that would be.
I make a lot of motions. Put me down.
It probably was you, George.
What was that?
Was you, George?
What kind of motion?
High probability.
It was you, George.
I think it was George.
That's the way I recall it.
So George, you did.
I
You could
think
go
it was
back
George.
and watch it, and then you could tell.
Well, but this is from our retreat.
Oh, it
so
wasn't. Oh,
recorded.
recorded.
Yeah. That's all I had for changes. Everything else looked good to everybody else? All right, so all in favor of accepting those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Bills and directors' orders?
So I have a folder here. Some of these are warrants from the old districts. It's a June 30th. And so those check dates were actually June 30th, so nobody would have gotten to approve those. So
Okay.
I have those here, one for each entity. And then I also have a up-to-date Addison Northwest School District one.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want me to pass these along to you.
Are we,
or passing them around? How
Are we allowed to approve the ones on behalf of the other?
It's my understanding
Warrants?
that you are,
Okay.
because now the district has consolidated. So we consulted about that and made sure that that was going to be acceptable.
Okay,
Um,
perfect.
So it's my understanding that you do have the authorization to sign off on the June 30th
Okay.
orders.
We adopted all of the pluses and minuses of the member schools.
Right. You're absorbing all of what
Yeah.
they.
And the finance committee is underway in determining how this
How we're going
process.
How this is going to
Feel
happen.
good
Yeah, this is
about
another
the bills and
item.
directors' orders?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
You feel good about these?
We have not looked at these. I'm afraid I
Yeah,
can't
I
say
just barely
I feel
brought
good about
them with me.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe just, we can have a motion to approve them and maybe just pass them around for people
Pass them
who
around,
want
yep.
to take a peek.
And I'll put the district one at the back. So all the first ones you're looking at are
Could you?
the districts.
Could you just give us a figure?
Well, Mark can, do
Each one will have a figure on it, so you have a total figure down here in the corner for each school.
you want to make a motion, Mark, while you have them in your hand?
Sure. Addison Town School District to approve 5 different invoices totaling $6,999.45. Ferrisburg Town School District for 12 checks totaling $21,212.50. Virgins Union High School, 21 checks totaling $77,740.21. Supervisor Union, 44 checks totaling $165,936.50.
Gap spending you're talking about.
Jens Elementary, 34 checks, $633,233.85.
What? $600,000 before June 30?
Well, we have a almost $600,000 check to People's United Bank.
People's United Bank, it's paying off a TAN.
So you remove that one and it becomes a much more reasonable.
Gotta pay off your loan.
And these all new district. 181 checks totaling $807,000, $589.67. Got a few big ones in there for health and dental.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? They're coming around.
Yeah, I can. Just a second.
They can all be gathered at the end.
Addison looks okay.
I don't even know.
We'll just take a moment
Send the others down.
while people can get
Working around.
a cursory glance here.
God, we've got you here.
So, Elizabeth, this will be the last time we'll have bills from
Yes,
the
there's
other
no more
districts?
checks being cut out of the June 30th
Okay.
districts. This is the final run.
So next time we will just have one amount.
You will.
Excellent.
Elizabeth, can you tell me what the check is related, what it's for the Orchard Trust Company LLC, $20,900? It is in the Union High School. It's
I
not
don't
something
know
I've
off the
ever
top of my head.
seen.
There's one at the elementary school as well, for less,
You
but,
said Orchard Trust?
yes.
I'm imagining not a literal orchard, although that would be really cool.
Thinking it's gotta be some kind of insurance.
Insurance, yeah.
So if there are any questions, we'll take those
I will
down and
look into
email,
it and
Okay.
email you
let
a
know.
response.
Okay.
And you said it was on what schools?
VUHS.
And
High school.
VUES.
And VUES.
And
Yep.
Yes, okay.
There's a little one here.
Yeah, there's one also at
Seven
the
Barrow.
union, supervisory union, so some,
The SU as well?
SU as
Yeah.
well?
Okay.
Okay. It's gotta be some kind of
Not the other
insurance
two
policy.
schools, though?
I didn't see it. No. Reinhardt Food Services?
Where did you put
Is that a supplier?
Yeah, that's food.
That's food
We're
supply.
going directly to the supplier? That's so exciting.
Ferrisburg. What about Addison?
No.
None.
No.
It's on Ferrisburg as well.
Harrisburg too.
Oh, so it's probably
Probably
all of them.
Not Addison.
But not Addison.
Oh,
Not Addison.
Maybe they got paid early,
yeah.
or they're not
I
insured.
remember when I was on the finance committee, that's a contracted,
They're insured by Addison
some-
Independent.
that orchard, that's a contracted thing,
But for what?
but I don't remember
Yeah,
why.
but she said one of them was $20,000. That's.
Yeah.
So we'll research that
Yeah.
and we'll email the board a response.
Aren't you guys glad that the board doesn't approve all the checks that go out of each of the schools?
But there will be a system in place.
And so that we are assured
Part of our
that
charter.
those
That
checks
we-
are going in the right place and
Right.
to the right vendors.
Exactly.
This is a little off topic, but could we get on a long-term discussion at the board level about what the heck the teacher's retirement system is and how we determine how much we owe, what the teachers are gonna get? I just don't know anything about it. There's some pretty good
So,
stuff
some
in here.
education around that?
Yeah.
Teachers' retirement is something that the state is responsible for funding, and they don't.
Okay.
Okay,
This
thank
is
you,
not
George.
a, not a.
We have checks.
Or is it
We
not a
have checks
discussion right now?
going to the teachers' retirements.
I think, guys, I think we've got, don't we have a motion?
Yes, we do have a motion to approve,
We're still going.
approve
Yes,
these
thank you.
checks.
The retirement plan.
So, are we ready to vote on this?
Are they all came across? They all came
George
I have the
has
last one just
the
came
SD
here.
one.
That's who they are.
And I know but we're still waiting, so I wanted to ask Elizabeth. It's our, flex plan, our retirement plan.
Larry, is it relevant to the motion? Sorry.
Relative to the motion. Yeah, we're not allowed to discuss other things, are we?
Not till we pass it.
All right, that's cool. I won't ask.
Sorry.
No,
I didn't even
I
know we
like to do
had
things by the
Albertsons
rules,
in
sort
Vermont.
of.
Trying.
Shaw's.
It says Albertsons right there.
It's through
Same
Shaw's
thing.
is
Shaw's.
the parent company.
It's Shaw's, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, well.
So we can't wait for this system to be in place, so we're not questioning the names of every
this,
supermarket
right.
at the board.
That was sort of an irrelevant aside. I
roughly
apologize.
1.7
Okay,
million.
I'm done looking at these. Some of them are more relevant than others, I think.
that's the health insurance.
Okay. All right, I'm done
But
reading.
if
Wait,
I
there's one
might,
more.
if I might recap, it appears that the amount that we're voting on is roughly 1.7 million.
Sounds about right.
Okay?
I just read the numbers, I didn't add them.
Yeah. Mark can't read and add at the same time. Okay, so are we, oop, okay, one more moment.
Yeah, Gorham Leasing, is that the Marshall fire, is that the fire alarm in the high school? Does that sound about right? But that would, maybe.
Yeah, we do have a
how much
lease
is it?
agreement with them.
How much is Gorham?
16, almost 17.
16,000?
Seems like that's an
We'll have to
annual
resubmit.
I'm
payment.
almost
Okay.
thinking that might be copiers.
We'll confirm that in an email to you.
Copier, okay.
Did you write that down?
So an email about the orchard and the Gorham. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve all of these checks. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that, expediting that process a little bit.
Would it be okay if I asked Elizabeth, or should I wait till another meeting?
Yeah, or after the meeting. You can ask her
We'll
directly.
see her again tomorrow.
Yeah, or at your committee.
Thursday.
So, the next item
They
is
all
approval
float
for
together.
superintendent to offer letters of
Soon.
intent. So I'd like to take a motion, and then we will have discussion.
So moved.
Second.
I make that motion.
What motion?
You do.
I move that we approve.
motion.
May I make a motion to approve the superintendent to offer letters of intent?
And I second that.
Thanks, George.
Is that a specific enough motion, or do we need people's names in the motion?
Should authorize the superintendent to offer a contract to Dylan and Nancy Bunier and Dylan Stoll. Thank you.
My motion is to allow the superintendent to issue articles of intent to Nancy Bunier and Dylan Stoll.
For the third time, I second that motion.
Thank you. That makes the sixth time, I think, technically.
Okay, so, Joanne, did you included some information? Did you have anything to add?
No, I do not. I have had a chance to meet, I have not met Nancy yet, because she was the single candidate that was brought forward, but I haven't had a chance to meet with Dylan, and I think he's going to be a good addition to the special ed department, doing the kinds of work that Kara laid out for you in the previous board meeting.
So Kara has met them both?
I'm sorry?
Has Kara met them both?
Kara headed up the hiring committee for Dylan, and she was involved also with the hiring of the special educator at Ferrisburg.
So, have we had a school psychologist on staff before? We have. So this is instead of doing the contracted that they used to do?
This is, I don't know if you were at the presentation that Kara gave on the continuum of services. We have 2 school psychologists now. This is the 3rd one. We are not paying for expensive outside therapy any longer. We are doing evaluations in-house, and they're working on teams with students that have behavioral challenges to keep outside expensive placements to a minimum.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor of Joanne offering these 2 contracts, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations, Nancy and Dylan.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of committee charges. We do have 2 charges that were sent out. We have a short charge and a long charge. One for
Showing me
the
up.
facility committee and one for the finance committee.
Is that in
So does someone want to make a motion and then we can discuss those charges?
Do you want a separate motion for each, or
I don't care.
put it all together?
It's your motion.
Why don't we do them separately?
Separately, please, Mark.
Move to accept the charge for the facilities committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. This charge for the facility committee says, 1, assist the administration in developing near-term and long-term capital maintenance plans and sustainable budgets therefore. 2, advocate to the board and the community for support of those plans. 3, serve as a sounding board for planning and implementing facilities maintenance and improvement priorities on a current basis. Ben?
Can somebody tell me what a sounding board is? Really?
So I think the idea. So I should note, and I think I probably said this to you before, but that this charge is adapted from the high school facilities committee's charge, and that what the committee does in part is we'll be working with Ken Sullivan to help develop and the plans, to help him develop the plans for how we keep the buildings and grounds working properly. We are not managing the buildings and grounds. We are helping him. We are not managing him, but we are, in a sense, working as an oversight in the larger process, primarily concerned with finances, but also with the kind of the medium and long-term plans. Does that seem like a fair?
So we can report back to everyone here and the community.
So, you know, on that one, we could serve as the board's arm for planning, implementing, instead of sounding board, because it's such a nebulous term. We could do that. And I also think this committee charge should have some requirement to report back to the board, but maybe that's just already common knowledge. I don't know. It seems like
Well, we do
Maybe
advocate to the committee advocates to the board. And I'm not disagreeing with you, but in response to that, we're supposed to come back to the board if there are any plans, and we have a monthly committee report, the same as the rest of the monthly committee reports. So I'm not sure that we need to add language. I'm not opposed to adding language, but I'm not sure what precisely.
I'm trying to get to, yeah.
But you will note there's nothing in that charge that gives the committee power to take any action.
Right.
So any action that would result would need to come to the full board.
In fact, the committee can do nothing, can make no decisions. But I think the model of the high school's facility committee is useful here. We, in terms of the using the capital investment plan, the facilities committee decided on a particular use that we wanted to part of that fund, and we brought a proposal to the high school board, which approved it. And so we'd be doing. I'm presuming we'd be working in the same way.
And we worked with the principal and the person in operations manager
To make that recommendation, right?
I have a question about the implications of the word sustainable in item number 1, and I wonder if the board or the committee would be interested in explicitly including in item number 1 that sustainable pertains not just to financial capital, but also to potentially to natural capital and the ecological sustainability of the grounds themselves, since the schools sit on fairly large pieces of land, and that's a very interesting, educational opportunity, but also it's a kind of a capital held in community trust and paid for by the community. That the sustainability of the grounds are also an important focus in addition to just how much money gets spent on them every year.
So I guess what I would say to that is it's wonderful when you have a really ambiguous word. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly that we need to be paying attention to the sustainability of the budgets and of the world, and of
or more specifically of the school
natural
grounds.
Resources of yeah.
We don't have to tackle the world just yet.
Just yet. But I don't. George, who's a member of the committee, spends a lot of time thinking about energy usage, and I think the committee as a whole is engaged in, is at least open to those questions. I don't know that we want to add more to that, but
Go ahead, George.
I think as Tom's saying, sustainable is a very good nebulous word, which can mean a lot of things. And so, I mean, for example, there are a lot of school grounds, but if we start selling them off piecemeal, that's not very sustainable necessarily. So, I mean, I think that we as the committee and as the board need to look at, you know, all aspects of sustainability. I would agree with that.
How about best practices?
Well, I really like what you just said, and I would be really happy if the board would consider a wording change that simply made a nod to that, something such as all aspects of sustainability, like what you just said, just to make it clear that we are intending the meaning to be expansive, rather than constrained simply to financial.
Any other questions or comments on this proposed charge?
So the motion is to adopt the charge as written.
Correct.
So any of the suggestions we made won't be made unless there's an amendment.
Correct.
Well, or another motion to amend, and then you.
In the future.
I mean, right now you could make
Oh,
a
I could.
second
Yeah,
motion
right.
to amend, and then
Amend
the
the
first
motion.
motion would go with as amended.
So, Tom,
Yeah, I'm thinking about language, sorry.
does the committee want to propose any edits to the charge at this time? Stay with a vote on the charge as written?
What if we just move sustainable up to developing near-term and long-term sustainable capital maintenance plans and budgets? That seems to cover. Sustainable plans and budgets.
Or does it need to go back to committee?
I
mean,
think
if
you're
it-
really close.
I mean, if you can,
We're right there.
yeah, I'm
I-
okay giving you a minute.
Lori, did you?
I just want to say I echo Finn, and I really appreciate you saying that, because I feel like we work so hard to get all the little details done, and sometimes we forget the big picture, and that's a really good comment. I think it's great. The facilities committee should understand, or at least have some concept of sustainable practices.
My
Or-
suggestion for the words might be, just as you said, just to say, as it is written now, assist the administration in developing near-term and long-term sustainable maintenance plans and budgets, therefore. And that way the word sustainable means both financial as well as environmental, with
Would you
minimal
like-
changes.
Would you like to make a motion to amend the motion?
I
in that
make
way?
a motion, I put forward a motion to amend the wording of item number 1 so that it reads as I just
We need to
spoke.
make a motion to amend our motion to adopt the wording.
Right, so with the standing motion on the floor, I make a motion to
That's fine.
amend that motion so that the wording will be changed in the way that we just said, and then we can vote on putting that motion forward.
Glory's like,
Second.
Is there a second to the amendment?
It's just a motion to amend the motion.
You've
Yes?
got an emotion, you've got a
Question?
motion, go ahead.
Well, now we're at discussion. It got
So now we've seconded
We're at-
the
we're at
amendment.
second. I was just gonna say, I mean, the other
Discussion
thing,
on the amendment, sorry.
the other thing that should be in here is, and any other issues as directed by the board. You know, and
Okay, can we vote on the first amendment, though?
So,
And then, if you want to make another one?
if I might just read
Yes.
what Finn said so that we know what we're voting on. It would read, number 1 would read, assist the administration in developing near and long-term sustainable maintenance plans and budgets therefore.
do we need to
Are
include
people ready
maintenance
to
and
vote
capital?
on that
Is that two
amendment?
different things, maintenance and capital?
I'm sorry, what?
We took out capital and put in sustainable.
I'm just making the distinction between capital improvements and maintenance. Is that important? I'm asking the question.
All right, I think we need to vote on the amendment and vote on the motion, and if it needs to go back to committee, then it needs, we'll
I
just.
think it ought to go back to committee for a month. and let
Yeah,
them
I was gonna
wordsmith it.
suggest you withdraw the motion. and let the committee
That's
work
fine.
on it a little harder.
Who's
I mean,
trying
not
it?
that you're not working on it hard, I didn't mean that.
Yeah, that's
I didn't
fine,
mean it.
Lori.
I'm sorry.
So
it's
with
not-
regards
it's just
with
not my
regards to
night
the inclusion or
tonight.
the exclusion of the word capital, your worry is that if we don't have the word capital, then maintenance plans may not include capital improvement. Is that the concern?
Yeah,
I think capital and maintenance would be better.
Okay.
So why don't we just come back? Well, can you withdraw your motion, and then I'll withdraw the motion, and we'll,
Okay.
well,
We
I
actually-
tabled the
No, Mark.
discussion. Mark,
We
can you?
actually-
So withdraw.
No, wait, we actually need to vote to withdraw the motion. We actually need to vote to withdraw the amendment, and we need to vote to withdraw the motion.
Does the committee feel like you really need to have to go back to this again, or are we
Mm-hmm.
really just like about 15 seconds away from passing this?
Yeah,
'Cause
but
I'm
you're
not
you're under the gun right now. You're
Right,
better
that's
off
the
to
problem.
think
Really
about
better
it
off
and
taking
do
a little bit
it
of
calmly.
There's
Okay.
nothing
So
pressing
we
that
just
has
vote
to be
no
done
on
right
this
now.
Okay, I withdraw my motion for the amendment.
Okay, so all in
Anybody else
all
have
in
anything they
favor,
want to see in it?
all in favor of withdrawing the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
I withdraw my initial motion.
Okay. All in favor of withdrawing the initial motion?
Aye.
Okay. We will send this charge back to committee and put it on the agenda for September.
But and can I just add one thing, since I'm the one who initiated this? I really appreciate the work you guys did doing this, and I apologize for inconvenience that I've caused you by bringing this up. I'm happy to help you with this now.
Get that
now that
going.
I've raised this
It's
question.
all part of the process. It's all good. Thanks, you guys. Let's move on to the finance
I would
charge.
move
yay.
to accept the finance committee
Uh-huh.
charge.
Second.
as written.
Is it-
Okay, so
Alright,
it
so
came to everybody as,
comment.
it's in a public document.
I do
Sue
have a few
emailed
copies.
everybody.
If people did not get it or did not read
It's
it.
in the Google Docs. So
Does anyone want a hard copy?
show you.
It came through as an email on Friday with a link to the Google Doc.
Bunch of boxes. Yeah, that's-
It came from me, yes. I forwarded it from Lori.
This is where all the documents are.
Hopefully everyone's read it because it is pretty long.
Finance committee?
So do we have conversation on the finance committee charge?
So we
Mark,
have,
I think you had a couple
we
comments.
have a motion in a second? I'm sorry. I
Yes, we
missed
do.
that part. Thank you.
So just a little tweaking, there's no need to have VT statute because that's what the V and the S mean in VSA.
In paragraph 2, or
Ah,
paragraph
so
1, in
just
paragraph 2?
in adherence
VSA is
to
actually saying
16 VSA.
Vermont
Okay.
statute annotated.
Okay.
And paragraph 4, and 5.
They're
right?
in a few places.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, I see that. Okay.
And then also in the third to last paragraph, we talked about community engagement committee. I thought that the charge we talked about was more than just preparing and distributing, but also figuring out how to best communicate financial complex terms in layman's terms. So to translate it so that those who actually get distributed these can understand them without having a CPA. Because I know I don't.
So to prepare in layperson's language and distribute timely?
Well, and maybe prepare, that falls into it. I just wanted to make sure that I had heard right in our meeting that that was something we wanted to try and do.
Mhm.
And prepare may mean that we're putting it into that kind of wording, and it's good enough as is, but I just wanted to assure myself that that was something that was being done, because I look at audit reports and I have no idea what I'm agreeing to.
You could say distribute understandable and timely, or distribute timely, oh wait, reports. Throw in the word understandable, I don't know.
One of the reasons why I did it the way I did, which I got you in there, Diana, without saying, or telling you that to begin with, is my thinking is that this particular paragraph is outside, in large part, outside the finance committee. The communications part would be
And all
another
that.
one.
I
How
think-
we distribute the annual report.
Part
maybe
of
some
part of the CEC's work, I think, that I'm particularly excited about actually is diving into how finances are communicated, because I do think there's a tremendous amount of confusion in the community, of which I am part, around how the budget is presented and what it means and where the money comes from and where it goes. So I don't know if that has to be in the wording of the charge of the finance committee, although I do think that it should be done by someone on the board, and the responsibility may fall to us as part of the community engagement committee maybe working with Joanne, to make sure that finances are communicated in a way that is maybe visual and easily understandable by the
That
public.
is certainly my intent.
I wondered,
I would be more concerned with the finance committee just getting the finances right, and then all of us can work together on how those could be presented.
maybe it's just because I felt like the facilities committee was left out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I wonder if the language about the finance committee specifically working with other committees needs to be in the charge.
Huh.
Because we are hopefully working together
I mean,
regardless.
wouldn't it be cool if we had an annual report that had the maintenance plan in it?
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
I think our community would love that. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, work with the Community Engagement Committee, the Facilities Committee, and any other committees?
How about the board
Yeah.
and its committees?
The board and its committees. Work with the board and its committees. The business manager, superintendent, prepare, distribute the timely reports of conditions. We don't have to name the CEC, right?
Right, because we could change
Just
our
having
name.
the CEC in there by itself, this is the first I've really thought about it, and I'm like, my mind's kind of jumbled up. I'm trying to get my mind around it, but I could see one of us coming to meet with you, and, I mean, we have to write our charge, our new charge, and we haven't done that yet, and this is like, oh, this is part of our charge?
Right.
It's not really how I saw us, but I think that we are about communication, and
It's money is very important to members of our community in the
it's
schools.
just adding to our long list of what we're already gonna try and tackle.
Right.
So,
So,
So not naming the CEC specifically
if it was
would be a
with
good
all
idea.
board committees, that would make me feel a little better, instead of having us
Perfectly
singled
fine
out.
with me. Perfectly fine.
so do we have clear edits that we want to make on an amendment tonight, or do we want to send this one back to committee as well?
I'd like to ask the board, does anybody see anything that's missing? Does anybody not understand what I said? What was said, I guess I should say.
I also wondered about work with the business manager, only because I wondered what that meant. It seemed like a fairly ambiguous term. Though I know what you're, I presume I know what's going on here, so I just that was
What's your idea of what's going on?
they
by
will
that?
put together collectively something that is coherent and legible to the board.
So,
A
Are you
solicit
looking at-
business manager for
Tom, are you
data.
looking at paragraph 3 or paragraph 5?
3,
Okay,
work with.
right. So really, we maybe could just start that sentence with ensure.
Or work with administration and auditors to ensure. Work to ensure written required procedures are complete, I guess.
They're gonna take this back and do it all.
My intention was to be inclusive, but we don't have to be, I don't have to.
Yeah, if you wanna,
What was the concern, Tom? I guess I'm not missing what the concern is.
So when I first read it, I didn't know what it meant. I now know what it means because of what you've said at the meeting earlier in the meeting when we were talking about the superintendent's report, and you said that's what you were going to do. So in terms of being communicative, it wasn't communicative about what it really meant until you explained it in
Okay.
greater detail. I don't know whether that matters, but
Joan?
So, this might be wordsmithing, but heard the word procedures, and I think that's administration's responsibility. Maybe that could be replaced with policy, because the board
Well,
is,
No,
It
I
just
want to
says
just make sure that the
ensuring-
written procedures are completed.
Right.
I see.
I don't
It's
care.
basically just
I
oversight
see.
to make sure the
I didn't hear
procedures are
written procedures,
complete.
okay.
No, no, no.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just want to make sure
Thank
that,
you. Yep,
Ensure written required procedures are complete, yeah. I mean, I think if you were to ensure they were complete, then that would mean you had worked with everyone that needed
it's true,
to be worked with.
it's true.
But, so, do we have some clear edits that we want to make an amendment on?
one, but I don't know what paragraph it falls in. The one where the simple, you think you may have already written it down, Lori, about including the board and its committees in your in your work.
So, Gloria, that's paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it'd be work with, oh yeah, this is the
It's updated
amendment,
in
right?
real, whoa, look at that. It's a
This would
Google
be
Doc.
work with the board and its committees?
So I move for an amendment to the motion that the wording be changed in a way that Lori is currently
Go to
writing,
your email.
which will say, to work with the board and its committees, business manager and superintendent to prepare and distribute timely.
Go up
Lord,
here and,
no possible.
okay, and there
I'm sorry,
should
no
be a
password?
letter from
There's
Sue.
not updating.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
sorry.
Open that.
No, it, thank you.
I'm seconding what he says.
It is committees.
Hold on,
So-
but I
Got
think
it.
he's
Thank you,
gonna
Mark.
continue. 'cause there's
I'm
other
not,
edits
because
as well.
I'm not using a live copy, so I'm gonna wait till Lori's done and then she can read it to us.
Okay.
And that will be the thing that I'm moving to amend.
Okay. So I know we're going to take out Vermont statute.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I think
I'm
4
not,
places.
should I do VT 16 VSA? But no, VSA is Vermont, isn't it? Okay.
16 VSA says that you want.
So I
Delete.
don't know how to do find and replace in Google Docs very easily, so
That's
that'll
fine.
take me a minute.
So,
Yeah.
so those
So
will be
those
out.
will all go. The 5th paragraph will say, work with the board and its committees, business manager, superintendent to prepare timely.
The other idea I heard was the layperson terms and the question
that-
around who you're working with in
There it does it.
paragraph 3. So, I'm
I'm
just
sorry. Go ahead.
restating the ideas that I heard.
And Mark, you
I
brought
think
that idea.
It does what it does. I just wanted to make it.
Okay. And what about paragraph 3?
With the work with the business manager, that one part, are you satisfied with that at this point?
I'm fine. It's okay.
See, we only have it in view only, so.
So we would leave that as is?
Changes.
So
on
the
it, but if
amendment
this-
is to remove
that, we can
Vermont
all do that
statute in
and
4
stuff.
places and edit the first sentence of paragraph 5 to say, work with the board and its committees, business manager and superintendent to prepare and distribute timely.
Yeah. That is what I would like my amendment to
Okay.
say, and I
We have a
move that.
Second.
Okay. Can we vote on that amendment? Okay. All in favor of that amendment, please
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So now we are back to accepting this charge with the edits that we just voted on.
Did you discover something else?
Are we ready to vote, or is there more discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the
redundant.
Finance Committee charge as edited, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations,
She's
Finance
specifically
Committee, you
on the
have
hook.
your charge.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, good. That brings us to E, the motion to add monthly retreat meetings to the board calendar. So I would like to take a motion and we can discuss.
It's quarterly.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was supposed to be quarterly. Glory, what are you doing to us? I'd like to actually.
Following your email. I copied
Oh,
it.
did I say monthly? I'm so sorry. I meant quarterly.
It says quarterly somewhere.
It says quarterly in my
In your report.
write-up, yes.
Oh, okay.
I move to add quarterly retreat meetings to the board calendar.
I'll second that.
Okay, so this was something that a few board members had requested via email after our retreat. So here it is. Let's talk.
Are we thinking another half-day kind of things, full days, couple hours, specific issues, or general?
Some random weeknight until 9:30.
Right.
I think a couple of hours is probably enough
I do
if
too.
we're gonna go quarterly.
You know, it's a
How about to
perfect
be
time
determined
for
by the-
board education. It
Mhm.
really is.
That was
Oh,
when,
that's an interesting concept.
Well, we normally
Put them
work
both
board
together.
education into our regular meetings, though. I
Yeah.
think there were some suggestions made that I put in my,
Sorry, George, what did you say?
I said it's a perfect time for board education sessions.
so some other items that came up were reviewing board and committee work, planning for the future strategic plan, annual plan, facility plan, assessing our progress toward vision and goals, community concerns and ideas, role of schools and community, communications, etc.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff we can't really talk about at board meetings.
Yeah.
We don't have
There
time.
just is not enough time, so.
So, I mean, the question is, you know, so we have committee meetings, we have monthly board meetings, we're probably gonna have, I don't know, with the finance committee, if we will have more frequent meetings through the budgeting process, or if the committee's gonna bring things to us, I don't know, but there's a possibility that we may need to have additional regular meetings through the budgeting season.
It does seem to me that a retreat would be a nice opportunity to check in with big picture
Right.
goals, or you know, maybe the vision, a check in with the vision statement could be part of that, to see if there was how things were going. In a larger, in a less kind of nuts and bolts sort of a way, and in a more qualitative kind of a way.
Right.
I wonder if triennial might be better.
every
because
4 months.
We could do one November, one in April after, God willing, we've passed the budget, and then one in the summer.
That,
January is a particularly heinous time to try to do something like this. November and December aren't much better, but just the timing might be better three
So
times.
are you proposing an amendment to my,
Well, I'm
motion?
floating this,
We're-
and I would
he's-
be happy to propose an amendment if this seemed to, if the nodding heads seem to be, does that make sense to people?
The,
that's good, that
the
sounds good.
problem is that this venue is very restrictive. And the bit of getting together in a retreat, I think, brings about a lot easier conversation about subjects. And we're still getting our feet wet as a board, and that provides a valuable contact period that keeps us all in touch without the formality of, well, let me see, before we can discuss this, we have to have a motion, and then we have to have a second, and if we want to change something, then we got to have an amendment.
Well, just to clarify, we still need to operate under open meeting law at retreats.
That's okay.
Just, you know.
So,
What about using the solstice and the equinox as a loose guiding framework for when we meet?
So are you thinking 2 times a year?
No, both 4. There's two equinox and 2 solstice.
Okay.
And it doesn't.
Only if we
Winter
can make
solstice
it
is very
happen.
close to
That's my
Christmas,
birthday.
winter holiday, but we could.
No, I
move
think,
it up a little bit.
actually there's a lot of stuff that goes on in, say, mid-December
Yeah.
till the first week of January that makes it that much more difficult and to schedule something like
Yeah.
this. That's why I thought triennially where it was, November's not great, but early November is usually kind of a quiet-ish
Calm before the
time.
storm.
What's that?
The calm before the storm.
Calm before the storm, and sometime after the budget. I totally get your point, George, and I also like the solstice and the equinox as an opportunity. I'm just
That's what my beard revolves around, in case you haven't noticed. So
December 22nd is a little hard
I'm
to.
also just
Yeah.
that we take a lot. We are all giving a lot of time to the board, and there are costs to that, and I want us to be attentive to
Would
that.
you like to make a motion to amend?
I would like to amend the suggestion for a quarterly retreat to a triennial retreat. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there conversation around the triennial?
so I
Yes.
just have an idea to throw out, and I know this is it's gonna be a bad word, but maybe trying to meet on a weekend day, giving up a little time on the weekend versus nights and late nights, and
Yeah.
we've all got night this and night that maybe it might make it more easier to meet for 2 hours on a Saturday morning. No.
So I think
Anyway,
that the
just-
details of scheduling it would be handled, if this motion passes and we decide to have them, then we would send out some widgets or woodles or whatever they are.
Doodles.
Thank you. To schedule the exact times, but yes, that's
I mean,
always
that
an
might make
option.
meeting 4 times easier than 3 times, but 3 times is good. I'm good with whatever.
that's a suggestion that's hostile to the amendment.
Yeah.
On this
It was just a
Oh,
comment.
it is, sorry, it was just a comment. I'm not being hostile at all.
good with these Robert's rules.
Do we want to vote, do we want to vote on the triennial amendment?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment to change the motion to have triennial retreats, say aye.
Is that a word?
Aye.
No.
Aye.
It's once every 3
Is there
years.
opposition?
Yeah, I think
No.
that,
You're saying no? You're, as in?
There
yes.
is opposition.
Yes, you're opposed, okay. One opposed. Okay, well, the motion still passes. So
That's
we.
life.
Yes, it is.
That's life.
So we
George
go.
is not in this for a
so I
popularity
think say
contest,
3
guys.
times
He's
a year. not-
he's in
I
it
don't
for the
think
long haul.
triennials are-
You and I will work.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
we're voting on the idea, right?
Got it. I just wanted to
The
be clear.
concept here. Okay, so now we're back to the original motion, which is to approve whether or not we actually do this,
Yeah.
but only 3 times a year now. Is there more comments or conversation around this? I mean, are people thinking that we can actually make this happen, I guess, is one question.
We can
I
send
want to
out
make it
the
Yes.
requests, and if we get
Right.
a quorum, then we can do it, and if it
It's-
doesn't, then
Right, that's true.
it doesn't.
We're not bound to it, we're
If we
We're
put
open
it
to it.
on the solstice and the equinox, we'll naturally be magnetically be drawn to the meeting place.
Well, we're only doing 3 a year,
Our
so it's
next
not
one
gonna
is
work.
on
Yeah, it's very soon.
September 21st.
So I would like to move that we vote on this and that we say yes, we
Okay.
shall make 3 retreat times.
We've got the motion.
The,
So you
the
just-
motion, the motion's already, the motion's already,
That.
it's already out
We can
there.
discuss timing
So,
later.
so we already have one that we are pretty much committed to, so we'd be adding 2 more to make 3. Are people ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of having retreats 3 times a year on a triennial schedule? Triannual schedule,
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will get out a doodle
Madam Chair.
for November at some point. Yes, Lori.
I just wanted to point out, in the Finance Committee charge, it says that the board will direct.
Oh, I saw that. I meant to
Yeah.
ask about that.
I didn't want to make the assumption that the board wanted the Finance Committee to do all the work with the budget, because we've never done that before. It's always come to the full board.
Yeah, I was curious what that actually meant. As directed by the board, no later than the final board meeting in September, the committee will work with business manager and superintendent to prepare an annual budget for presentation. So on the September agenda, we should have
Discussion.
direction to the finance committee on what we're expecting you to do in
Right.
terms of the budget.
And
Is that-
maybe even have people think about it beforehand, because this will be a change.
Actually, that was the work that I didn't understand.
Oh, I see.
So,
Okay.
Lori, were you thinking that the finance committee would bring, or the finance committee would work to develop just one option to bring to the full board, or multiple options?
I was not thinking any farther than if the board wants, the finance committee will work with administration to create budgets.
This is going away?
If that's what you'd like us to do. That's my only intent. I wasn't trying to push anything. I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity that was out there, and we don't want to be charged with it any later than September.
Okay.
Right? If you're
Okay.
going to turn it over to us, we need to know, and then we'll also need to know kind of what you're thinking, or what we're
Okay.
thinking.
Can I be clear about what that means?
Yes.
I don't know what that means, because
I think.
I have created budgets to bring to the board for approval. So are we talking about the grain size of information that goes out to the public? What do we mean by creating a budget? I work with the administrators, and then we create a budget based on the vision and the needs of the district.
Right.
So what does that mean now that I work with the finance committee to create a budget?
Only that if the board chooses, my thinking was, if the board chooses, you would be presenting the first budgets to the finance committee, and then, any tweaks, any small things, whatever, and then that would go back to the board. So it would be an interim
Step?
Yes.
So just remember what happens. This is the budget building process is crazy, and I've been trying to hold firm that the first time the board sees the full budget is when we have the revenue picture and the expenditure picture. Because anything different than that, we're not understanding where we're at with the taxpayers, right? So it comes in right before Christmas, and then we have at least 4 budget meetings scheduled for January. So I'm a little concerned about the timing of it. We can certainly work with the Finance Committee in December and show you what our initial thinking is, but that may look totally different when I get those numbers in the week before Christmas and then work with the business manager over the holiday and the administration to make some changes that will keep us under board guidance, which is usually about money, usually about taxes.
So maybe in this initial year, we don't even bother with this, and maybe we never bother with it. I just wanted to offer that as a potential.
But what I see as the role of the Finance Committee, Laurie, is what you and I worked on last year with Tanya, and that is in what grain size and what format should the board receive this presentation. And maybe it's more detailed than what we did last year, but I see that as providing us guidance with the format of the report.
The presentation
The
of it.
detail of the report and the presentation.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. I just,
Okay.
Well, it'd be a learning experience, same as the evaluation this year is we have a new manager, the new board taking full control. We'll be sitting on the sidelines as the finance committee saying this is how we would like to be involved or this is where we don't need to be involved and how can we work it. And
Right.
in a year or two we'll know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And at the retreat, we talked about being better with financial literacy. And so maybe the Finance Committee could help those of us who aren't so good at that, like me.
So do we need further direction at September?
I just wanted to point it out that was something
Right.
that that is in here for the board to at least notice. We don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. Cross that off your list.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I did add here a motion to establish this superintendent evaluation committee. So I think Nicole said she was looking for, what, 4 or 5 people? 5 people, how many did she say? She said 5? 4 or 5?
You want it manageable, but you don't want 3.
So I will accept the motion.
Oh, we have to do a motion first?
Yes.
I
Motion
move to establish, that we vote to establish a superintendent evaluation committee.
I second it.
So do we have people interested in being on the committee?
Oh, wait, hold on.
What? You want to vote on that? And
Yes,
then vote
we
on who's
should.
on the committee? Okay. All right, all in favor of establishing the committee?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right, so who would be available and interested in being on that committee? I know John is as well.
There's 4.
1, 2, 3. Wait, what do we have? Who do we have here? Diana, Mark. Who else? I have
Christina, Mark, you, Sue?
Christina.
You're not Sue.
Diana.
You're Diana. Hi,
And
Diana.
Lori.
Lori C.
And Lori.
I was looking right at you when I said Sue,
say
but that's not who you are.
That's 6. Is that gonna work?
Oh. Is John too? Because I could step off if John wants to. If
Yeah,
you
John
only
said
want
he
5.
would be interested.
Yeah, if you only want 5, that's fine. I'll step.
5 is good for no tie.
So no?
Yeah, take me off.
So I have Christina, Mark, Christina, myself, Diana, and John.
Did you have your hand up? No.
Oh, did you want to do it, Chris? I'm sorry.
Good.
Nope.
I can't see everyone at the same time.
All right.
Are you
good.
sure?
Yeah, positive.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, so I guess we need a motion to assign
Do we?
the 5 of us to the committee? No, okay, we don't. All right, the committee is thus formed.
By the
Alright.
powers vested in thee.
Which we will report back to the full board.
As a little, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Lori?
Thank you. I like things neat, kind of like Mark does, and was hoping maybe after your first committee meeting, you guys would bring us back a charge, just like a few words. I just think it's a good idea to have the charge.
Okay.
So that people understand what the committees are doing. I don't know.
I think-
Joanne's evaluation committee, maybe that's all you need, or maybe I don't need a charge.
Well, I think Nicole laid out the charge, actually. She said we would be defining and editing, or tweaking was the word she used. We would tweak the rubric,
We should use a different word than that.
review the goals, update the job description,
No.
and establish a timeline and a process for quarterly check-ins.
So moved. As the committee charge.
Is there a second?
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Do we
All in
assume-
favor of accepting that as the,
Sorry, do we assume that this committee is going to be actually being the point group for the evaluation or not?
what do you mean by point group?
Are they conducting
Are you running the
evaluation?
evaluation? Is the committee then conducting the evaluation that's going to be brought back to the board, or is that going to be a separate item entirely? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm still not, what do you mean by
Are we writing the
conducting?
report? Are we the ones doing the number crunching? Or
Well, in conjunction with Nicole, that's why we have her to do that
She's doing that.
part.
That's the question. Is the committee just in charge of changing the wording and making sure the rubric is okay? Or is the committee themselves going to take the responsibility of conducting the evaluation, finishing it, and bringing that to the board?
Yeah, in other words, is the rest of the
Right?
board going to
Yeah,
get
that's-
Yes.
any involvement?
Just
Yes,
manage
yes.
Every
So,
board member gonna get the rubric and fill it out?
Yes.
Yeah.
is that the question?
I
think so.
It is, and I think that if that's the case, it
Yes.
should be articulated in the charge and as well. I didn't.
Okay.
Because I didn't hear that in what you.
So tweak the rubric, review the goals, bring it back to the board for approval.
well, the board is
I mean,
involved in the
yeah.
evaluation itself. I mean, you're going to get
That's the question.
yes.
They're
you would
just
have to
setting
be.
up the process.
Okay, so we're all conducting the
Then we're all
evaluation.
gonna do the process.
Yes.
That's what I'm.
It's just managing the process, managing,
Setting up,
overseeing.
creating a system.
Yeah,
Here it
creating
is.
the
It's on
process.
page 3.
Apparently, that's what
I think the
that's what I
committee
just
will
heard.
be
What she
figuring
gave
out
us.
what they're going to hand out and then gathering it all back up and adding the numbers or words or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's got to be handed out to, in this case, it's just going to be probably the board, and in the future, we'll figure out what other entities, once we're moving along, should be involved in it.
Via airborne propaganda leaflet, just broadcast across Addison County.
So we do have a motion and a second on this charge. I think we should vote. If people want that to go back to committee, just vote it down and we will clarify it in the committee and bring it back. Okay? Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. So all in favor of the charge as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So 3 opposed. How many aye? Can we have a
I
show
don't
of
know.
hands?
Wait, I'm interested to know what the opposition is. Can't.
We
I
voted.
think,
Oh, yeah.
I think that this is really important, and I don't think we should create the charge on the fly.
Okay.
Okay, so a show of hands for the ayes.
What was the question again?
What was the motion?
Yeah, it was
Moving
to create a committee?
approve.
No,
No.
We did that one already.
To accept the charge,
It's
to
on
accept
the-
the
it's
charge,
on the-
I'm sorry.
Okay.
To accept the charge. So we have 4, and the nays?
Essentially the charge.
Is it, okay, so I said aye before, but do I have to stay with that?
I was asking for a show of hands, so,
Okay, so
because
show
I
of
couldn't tell
hands.
who said aye and who said nay.
I said aye, so I should stay with
You
that?
should state.
No.
I couldn't
Now,
tell
show
who
of hands
said
now, so I
aye.
can change my vote, right?
Yes, you can.
All right, well, I would like to,
Goodness.
it's a split vote now.
But Tom didn't vote.
I was abstaining.
Do it over.
Okay. Okay, can we try this again? So we had an articulated charge. People in favor of the charge as stated, please say aye. Or raise your hand, I'm sorry.
Could you
Please
take
raise
a
your hand.
chance, could you just take a minute and read it? Is it this, what's here on this page? Is that what I motioned?
No, what you motioned was to tweak the rubric, review the goals, update the job description, and create a timeline and quarterly check-ins.
That's what, yeah,
that
because
is
I don't
what-
want them to collect and collate data yet.
That's what the motion was for. If you're in favor of that being the charge of the Superintendent Evaluation Committee, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you are opposed to that being the charge for the Superintendent Committee, please raise your hand. Okay, the committee has a charge. Okay, moving on to discussion items. We struck A, so B, guidelines for the work of the board. This is simply a question to the board that on the back of our agendas, we have now the guidelines for the work of the Addison Northwest School District Board for the year of transition.
And that's gone by.
We are no longer in the year of transition. We are in the first operating year.
Ooh.
We have the vision statement on the front page. But we did do, as Nicole stated earlier, we did put a lot of work and thought into these guidelines. So the question is, do we want to keep these guidelines and adopt them as our board guidelines moving forward? Or are these no longer relevant now that we are not in the year of transition? Or some combination thereof? Finn?
I would be open to revising these guidelines on an ongoing basis, but I do not think that they have become irrelevant due to the change in year. So I think they remain relevant. They are much more specific than the vision statement. I like them, and I would like to keep them, even though I would be open to continuing to revise them as we learn more about our district and about our jobs.
So perhaps at a retreat?
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, so is there general consensus that we should keep them and just for now strike for the year of transition? Keep them on here and we'll revisit them at the retreat? I see a lot of heads nodding.
Yeah.
It's not really an action item, it's really just something that's on our paper, so, okay. I think. Any other comments?
The head injury.
That is not on tonight's agenda.
Okay.
We're gonna have a report next time.
Okay.
Okay. Next meeting agenda items, I think we have a list that's been created tonight. So, we have struck the executive session, so I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.
On time?
Gonna move someplace?
Do you guys want to take a little break before a little potty break before we move into the next meeting? Okay.